Well, hi everyone, welcome in to the Dev Insight. I got Clumzy and Larry. My name's Goremiser, and of course this is the opportunity for you who are watching on SMITE game. You're not specifically in my laptop, but you're going to be able to ask questions, and of course we can then get the Dev Insight. See, there's the reason the name of the show is. And so I'm really excited, I think, to dive into this, right? New God is always really fun to talk about. But I guess first and foremost, because, you know, patch notes goes by, it feels like so quick, there's so much to cover. Is there anything afterward that either of you are like, oh, I wish I'd gotten to say that, and I just never got the opportunity to elaborate as much as I wanted?
No. Between my preambles and my mid preambles and stuff like that, which I think I did a pretty good, my post ambles, a little bit of all of it. I think I did a better job this time around. Right?
Yeah, I mean, there was a little bit less to talk about for sure.
Yeah, not being the seasonal update and everything. Yeah. I think the main takeaways for me was just making sure that the community knows that we're obviously going to be paying pretty intense attention to the mage discussions. Obviously, the class bonus challenge it's a single bullet point, but it's a large amount of change that could mean. Is that going to be too much? Is that going to be too little? That's also possible too. The warrior and tank in general proc item changes. We've been doing that with bonus balance. We did that a little bit more with Pridwin. There's still a lot more that's in discussion as well. But I think the community themselves are having this discussion of like how much is acceptable, how much is necessary for tanks to still do what they need to do. Right? Where's that line between tanks either being damage dealers, being unkillable frontliners, like what's acceptable for tankier characters? So I think that's something we want to keep an eye on. We don't want to go too far to the point where they're useless again. And I think those are the main 2 bullet points.
Did you have it? I mean, Larry, you got a whole god that came with this. I'm sure there's a lot we're going to cover.
I mean, if I could shout out literally every person that I worked with, I would.
Individually, you need to, actually. It's in the contract. I don't know if you got that part.
There were just so many people that I wish that I could shout out every single one of them individually, because they really did make that process so smooth and nice and easy. But
I know that was like when we were originally talking about it, like, and this comes up, I think, with New Gods, almost like literally every single time, which is just like, if they are not just someone who walks, what is the animation going to be like? And I know like that's sometimes it's stifling because it's like, oh man, we've got to release this, and it's like, we've got a time frame. Can we get this done? Was that like stressful at all with Charon at any point, where like trying to get the boat and the effects to work?
It was, because when we develop a god, they don't all come in at the same time, right? Not all the pieces are into place at one particular time. So how it worked for Charon was that we had our gameplay done very early, which is not typical for the process, but gameplay was done, and we were using basically stock animations from Morgan Le Fay, who was basically our decoy for a lot of the time. It's like, when that stuff's not ready, we will just take from other gods and use them as like placeholders and things like that. So that was our stock, and then we were like, okay, he's like T-posing on this boat, great, let's get those animations in. So we started to get them in. We're like, yeah, this feels better. It's still missing something though. It's missing a little like zhuzh, you know,
a little pizzazz,
a little extra on top. So we worked with the FX team, we worked with the tech art team as well. Shout outs to Jeff for making some really awesome different ways to make him paddle. He paddles uniquely for all 4 of the different directions that he's moving in, and then he has adjusted ones for the other 4 directions as well. So super nice, like, little detail there.
Can I ask a really dumb question?
Yeah.
Was there any like live research for that? Like, did you like go out to a boat and like, how do you get boat to go sideways?
Personally, not me personally. However, we did have one of our animators that was in charge of the runs. Is what they're called, the runs, even though he's obviously not running.
Yeah.
They did do some like nautical like practice, like that they were boat enthusiasts, so you're like, all right, there you go, that's your thing. You get to work on the runs this time. Congratulations. And they were very particular about it. They were like, if he's gonna paddle this way, he's got to paddle that way. If he wants to go that way, he's got to look like this. So I was like, by all means, go off.
It pays off, right? Because he looks amazing when you get into the game.
Oh my gosh, so excited.
I'm sure there's going to be a lot of questions that come up around Charon throughout this, but I know that we already have one that is ready and available for us. And so we can see, what other class bonuses did your team consider, such as like, what else could Guardians have had other than like CC or stuff like that?
Gotcha.
I'm trying to remember. It's been a long time since we talked about this.
Yeah, I mean, the class bonuses are something that we, that's ever prevalent, is something that we added in, and something that we continue to want to think about tweaking, whether we need to or we don't. I mean, in general, we're pretty happy with the way that they've lied and then the way that they've kind of fleshed out to be. We don't want them to be like overpowering, but again, just like we saw today with the mage changes, it's something that allows us to give us little pressure valves. I don't want to dodge the question, but it's more so something that we want to be careful about answering too directly, because we might make future changes along this vein. And that's not saying we're going to do something like immediately, but it's something that we aren't not considering. It's something that's definitely still an option. So I think it is a interesting question. The main thing for us is we didn't want to do passives that drastically changed gameplay, right? Like this is the earliest example of something that was almost more of like a joke, right? It's like, what if the hunter class passive was like a mini like Odibo effect or something like that, where like chained through the minions and did something wildly unique, like Divine Ruin kind of got instead, right? It's like, well, that's just almost too drastic across the board. That's also really, really hard to balance, like the opposite of what we wanted to do, where it's less of a pressure valve and it's more of just like an added multiplier of just like how difficult to do things. So that's a direction that we didn't go instead. Could we have done something a little bit more interesting than like just CCR or some of these ones? Maybe. But again, it's tough to find that balance between, does this need like new effects, new visual treatment? Does this clutter every single game with 5 Guardians or 5 of the same class and on both teams, versus something just being simple that just allows us to really tweak what we need to tweak when we need to tweak.
I agree. I think that the simpler approach that we went with has worked out pretty well, because you don't really have to think about it. It just happens. Whereas if you have to shape your whole gameplay around something from minute 1 that you're getting, it just feels a little extra. It feels like this should be just part of a God's kit. Like this is like to the point where I feel like, okay, this is something that I want to play around all the time, but it might feel exhausting if I'm an ADC main and every single game I gotta deal with oboe procs or whatever the might be.
Or like all warriors got like tier passive or something like that. It's like, well, I need to really think about this every single game, every team fight.
It's just a lot more easy on the brain.
And like you said, there's potential, like if you ever are like, I mean, there's still another season next year, right? Like 11's gonna come around the corner.
We could just throw this entire philosophy out and just go crazy.
You never know like what kind of changes the future is.
And that's part of the fun with the seasonal changes. Is like, we try these things out, what sticks and what doesn't, and it's a living game, right? It's
and
10 years plus old, and we want to make sure the game's fun.
It's really, I think that's kind of at least the fun for me watching it, like even looking at some of the changes that came in this year, and I think the class bonuses, there it is. I was like, what's the word for it? Those guys like are really impressive, just because like you said, you go back to season 2 and there was something that was added that people were probably screaming about, got removed, but then we added it back in like 3 years later and it was actually a good change and everyone loved it. And it's like,
I mean, we're back to relics with like branching trees and stuff like that.
Seeing the game evolve has been really cool. And so I think having like any of these new features, and I think very appropriately, like you said, where it's like, I'm not going to dive into what we didn't use, because that might just come into the game eventually. Like, there's a really good chance of
perspectives, right? Is that not the people that work on the game today are the same people that have worked on it 10 years ago, So especially with the environment changing in terms of just the overall, like, what is fun in Smite, the same thing occurs, like, if you look at old gameplay, you're like, why are they doing that? Why were they doing that? Well, they just didn't know what the best thing to do was. Players as a whole have learned so much over the 10, 11 years since Smite has existed, so we have to kind of adjust our philosophies to what the players really want.
Exactly.
And to what they know. I think it's frightening to think about. Like, we have that conversation all the time. It always comes up with, like, if you took the worst team in the Pro League now and put them against the best team in
100%.
season 1,
I've talked to everyone about that specifically. It's like, were you guys good? And like, we're all bad. It's like, wait, what? It's
and
like,
they'll say it too.
Yeah, we were good at the time, but like, we all like, look what they're doing. We're bad. Everyone's bad.
Everyone knows how to farm better.
Yeah.
I'm sure
I think that, that's like a whole tangent thing, but like,
We're going on a journey.
Gamers optimize things more now, which I think is important.
And no, you're right. That's a tangent. We'll go down the rabbit hole. We've got other questions. There's a whole point there's a whole point to this. And so we'll just look and see what the next question is. So, big fan of all of you. Have a great day today, so thank you.
It's Young Sonics. What's up?
Oh, yeah. Could there be consideration in adding 2 glyphs into the builds, or do you think that would be too much?
2 glyphs in the builds is actually something that we discussed for this last season. It's something that can definitely still happen, but I think we mentioned this on the patch note show, this wasn't also the right time, because the reason why we chose these new glyphs to be added was also because we wanted to make sure we didn't just add powerful glyphs, we didn't add just like powerful glyphs in terms of like literally giving you power, right? Sure, Pridwin can do that in a different way or whatever it may be, but we wanted to add ones that like kind of rounded out different item builds that everyone felt like they have a selection of a glyph that they can use no matter kind of what their playstyle is. And the fact about adding additional glyphs to be purchases, it is, you know, it is snowballing. It's the team that's ahead can have one more glyph each, so that's now 10 glyphs per team versus a team that might technically have 0 because they're not ahead yet. And it is just increasing your strengths, right? It is giving you more protections, more utility, more power, whatever it may be. So while that's something that we could do, and I think that is, I wouldn't say likely, but it's something that we will continue to consider when we're already talking about reducing power and protections and, you know, stat bloat across the game. This wasn't the time to do it. So it's something we'll continue to consider.
That's like the thing we were just saying. Living game could maybe happen someday.
Yeah. Maybe we just give everyone like full glyphs, like no cap.
Yeah, maybe you just have 6 glyphs.
No
cap.
cap.
Wait.
No cap.
That works though. I
That
believe I just said that in like an actual way. Huh.
that would be an interesting, I think, set of play tests, but I don't know that would ever see the light of day. I think that
Monday, I want a play test on Monday with
let's have
no glyphs.
6, just
glyph cap.
pure
I wanna see
6
what that
glyph
feels
builds
like.
and see what it's like. And at that point, I mean, you might have to start scooping items from other trees. Like, you're just like, I would never buy this on a mage, but I want the glyphs, so
Yeah,
I'm just going
exactly.
for it. It would be interesting, but yeah, definitely something that, like you said, considered for the future. I know we have another one though lined up, or another question lined up. So No mentioned closer look in the article, but did you ever design Charon as an old man, or did you know from the beginning that you wanted him to be a stocky skeleton, but a skeleton nonetheless?
Honestly, it was a really hot debate for a while. We were having a discussion about what Charon should feel like and what the vibe should look like. We didn't really have a specific, he should be a skeleton, or he should be a lich, or he should be a wraith, or any of those things. It was like, what do we want him to feel like? What do we want that overall presentation to give the vibes of? And that was where we started, was what are his vibes kind of like? So you're like, spooky. We want him to feel strong. We want him to feel like a frontliner. So we
Absolutely.
had a couple of different places from there that we went. And so we had a lot of these other examples. And then when we were trying to translate them into actual game like visuals, it was having a lot of problems in terms of our scope, because again, we are time limited. That's just how games are. We have a limited amount of hours in the day that our resources can work to be able to, you know, get this stuff done. And even engine limitations, which is just a whole other topic, just due to the way that meshes and skeletons and bones, and that's just what they're called, by the way.
Yeah, not just Charon
not like
bones,
the
the
Charon
actual
bones.
like rig of the character.
Yeah, the actual rig of the character, but how many there can be. And so what we talked about is that cloth is really expensive in that regard. It's really, really
the boat, I mean,
expensive.
adding a boat is an extra thing. I mean, I know we had the same topic with like Lancelot with his horse. Anytime we have extra appendages or models or features, that's absolutely discussion. Is like we have limits that we need to uphold to.
So we came up with a bunch of different designs, and I think Jeff, the concept artist on Charon, actually posted a lot of those different options on I think his ArtStation. So if you are interested in checking out that like actual process of how many different designs we went through, definitely check out Jeff's art. He's an incredible artist. And overall, we decided that the concessions that we would have had to make him this robed figure was just not going to fit the vibe that we wanted. It was going to bring him a little bit, it made him look a little silly, I think, was the place that we ended up at, because we wanted him to be this frontline feeling character and really defy that norm of Charon as this scraggly, old, skinny man. You know, we wanted him to feel tough. We wanted him to feel strong. And so combining that with the skirt aesthetic just wasn't really working with us on a number of different directions. So we said, okay, what's our solution? We still want him to feel like this ancient, chthonic character.
Yeah.
And so we had to kind of come up with the different solutions, whether that's like the pauldrons having those really sick candles that have a lot of different references in them, to the coin mail, which I think turned out so cool. I love that. I love it
really
so
great
much.
Detail. It's something like you might not think about immediately, and the artist does. It's like, that's it. Like, keep that.
Because we did pose the question as well, what does Charon do with his coins? What
He wears them.
He wears them, apparently.
At that point,
fashionable.
with how many people he has shipped across, like he's probably got like a ton of like nice suits for himself.
Oh, yeah.
Like he's already done the buying. He lived
Maybe
through
that's
like
just what
the
his skins
Renaissance.
are. It's like the exact same character. You just give him like different coin armor and different coin tuxedo.
Yeah, just like, what does he look like today? What kind of new outfit? What's his new fashion? I do think it's really interesting, because like I know, other gods, and this is going to go back to before any of our times, but like you look at Thor and it's like, okay, there's a lot of pop culture anything around him as an entity. So like
absolutely.
Creating something that still feels like Thor but is unique can be difficult at that point. But for Charon, it feels like there's a couple, like Percy Jackson, he's mentioned in there, but it's like going from like a book where you just hear about it, like Charon's not the most prominent. So like, how was it, I guess, like coming into those initial discussions, like did you have any envisioning on like this is what Charon looks like to Lermy yourself, or was it just kind of like a yeah, I guess he's just like old and powerful, huh? And then it had to go from there.
I mean, personally, you know, I am a gamer myself, you might say. I too am a gamer.
You game a little bit. I dabble in these like, such called video gaming.
So Charon has been depicted in a number of other games.
Yeah.
Oh, calling you up there. It's like I've got the list of media references.
No, I actually did that though.
No, I know. That would make sense. That's
yeah.
what we generally want to do with like a physical refer boards.
Yeah, when we do our boards, that is generally what we do is we look at what other games have done, what other pieces of media have done. And so personally, I'm a big fan of the game Hades. And I was like,
oh yeah, of course.
That's Charon. And then I was like, wait, but that's Charon to Hades.
Yeah.
Exactly.
What is Charon to Smite? What would that feel like? What would that look like? How does that work with the rest of the game and how he's going to play in the game? And I think moving away from those preconceived ideas of what Charon is and really exploring it from the ground up really helped us to come up with a super cool solution.
Yeah, I mean, I know at the time that we were starting to work on it, I don't know exactly when the time, people were just like, the Tibia Mariner from like Elden Ring. It's like, if we're talking about like, it's like, it was almost like a needs to be the same thing because good game just came out, great game, and just like, do that. Like, the same thing with Hades, like, Hades is a fantastic game, let's just like, but we always talk about the same thing is that like, we want our art, we want our characters, we want to be what, not just what people think they're going to be, but just what Smite is. Like, you know, if you Google like the characters, we want to see our art up there because it's just our version. It's not just like copy and paste from anywhere else, right? Like it's unique to our game.
And there, I think that goes to showcase like sometimes something that fits like, you know, in Hades art style or something like that doesn't always then directly translate to like that feels good in Smite. It's like that doesn't look the same.
And they have very different limitations too in terms of how to implement. That kind of goes back to our discussion about the bones and the
meat
rigging.
suit, right?
Oh God, not the meat suit.
That is what we.
You did call it a meat suit.
That's what we call it.
I don't know why you called it a meat suit, but you called
That's
it
what it is, though. Okay, so we have.
Is it like an industry term that I'm just not familiar with?
Honestly, if it's an industry
So
term.
it's a Lermy term.
But no, when we were designing Charon, we're like, okay, we have to future-proof this if he has like a human skin.
Yeah.
So our concept artist Jeff went back and like redid the concept all around this like actual physical guy. Like there is a guy basically as Charon.
Yeah, no, I actually remember that.
And there's again a piece of concept art on his art station if you did want to go look at it, where he's just this like really big macho guy, and it's like that's just a macho guy.
How would he fill out? You know, if he did he hit the gym and stuff like that when he was alive instead of unalive?
I have to say I appreciate it because I just have a massive rib cage. It blows my mind. And so when you were talking about that, I was like, I'm Charon. Like that's gonna be me in like 80 years.
SWC
no, I guess
cosplay, you know?
I don't know how long.
Charon's 8.
I'm not going to get into body decay on Devin's side. Yeah, however long it takes till I'm a skeleton, I'll look kind of like that. He probably still looks cooler because his fingers are neater.
His eyes glow.
His eyes glow. I don't think I'm going to have that as a skeleton unless I get like some massive buffs.
Maybe like if you eventually get into. You know, maybe the Greeks were right, and maybe that is who you're going to face at the other end.
I walk up, we get to bond over specifically our rib cage. Whoa, that's crazy. I've lost myself, but the good news is I don't need to know anything because we probably have another question lined up, and chat can ask something else for you and save me from being here. So seeing as we're getting a lot more food skills,
what?
Like Thunder Rage
I read ahead,
4.
sorry.
Which food would you want added next? And then they said boiled egg zhangquai.
Why boiled egg? I just stared at that.
First off, this is going to be a hot take. This is going to be a very hot take, and I understand that. I hate eggs. I hate all manner of eggs.
Yeah, sorry, I forgot you have really bad takes.
Look,
have you been spending a lot of time with Aggro? Doesn't Aggro hate eggs? I feel like this
weird because I've got 2 eggs on my team, you know?
Wait, what? Dude, that's my boss. What the heck?
Is this a segue to a private joke when we were talking about the balance beating? Yeah, okay, that's fine.
So,
oh, God.
If there are any skin concepts that are food-based, we know that Lermy is not putting forward any
scrambled eggs.
Here's my thoughts. I want Yu Huang to have a hot dog skin where his dragons are hot dogs.
But where do you have hot dog?
Yeah, but I want more hot dogs.
If you think about it, you get more hot dogs, right? Hear me out. And then you can put those in the 4th of July chest as well. It's like, what else are you doing on 4th of July other than watching Joey Chestnut break another record?
I mean, Shablanque pizza skin, he's like he's the delivery guy.
Yeah, he's the delivery guy.
He's not a pizza. Could be interesting.
Well, I guess while you think about it, there's one, and I've been pitching this instead as like a thing we should make as like an energy drink. But now that there's an actual like Thor skin that has that theme,
Yeah.
what do you guys? This is literally just because I've been talking about it for years. What do you guys think about Zeus juice for Zeus? Like he'd be his own little can similar.
Yeah, I mean, we need to find a different type of can shape and stuff like that. I mean, the meat.
He could be a
makes
bottle.
sense, but yeah.
He could be a advanced
Well, a
GP shaker.
shaker
He could be. I don't. If it gets into the game, that's all I really care about.
Sure.
But do you have? I guess.
Oh.
Without any insight, do you have any?
What
foods?
if like, geez, I'm trying to think. Like, Geb is like made of the different floating pieces.
Yeah.
Oh.
I've been trying to think of a way to do dumplings, but it's like, what if it's just like I don't know, a core, whatever it may
and
be, and
there's,
just like the
soup-
dumplings, like
there's soup, like connecting him.
yeah, whatever it is. Yeah, absolutely, and then just
Yeah.
like connects the different pieces of dumplings or something like that.
What we
And
need
it just
is
becomes a massive bow rolling.
a Campbell's sponsorship for Yamoja, and all of her
Yeah.
water just becomes soup. Lermy, favorite food,
Favorite food.
and then turn it into a Smite skin.
Yeah, so mine was dumplings. Dumplings are my favorite.
Yeah.
Oh, that's tough. I'm gonna say pizza because it's easy and it's
Okay.
flexible.
Yeah.
Pizza. Who would be pizza? Who's like triangle shaped or circle
you're not
shaped?
thinking- yeah,
Who's triangle or
What
circle?
about like
shape?
deep dish? You could have just
Deep
like.
dish pizza.
Man,
I'm just saying, there's a lot of different ways to do pizza.
I'm trying to think of a good way to implement. I mean, with that one, the first thing you said was circle based, and I started thinking of ultimates, and I'm like, oh well, you could have like
Sorry, I completely.
No, go for it.
I was just thinking like Chalk. I don't know why.
Oh,
Not because of his
no,
model
but he's
shape,
all
just like all the
circles.
like
He's
all the
all
like
circles.
pizza effects, and like his ulti is just like a massive like pizza splats.
He could be the chef.
Yeah, and you're like
then
throwing pizza slices.
Everything he does is pizza.
But I also love the chef theme too. That's also really fun. Like the Osiris skin that we had.
Yep.
That one was awesome.
It feels like that's like the slow evolution, right? We had the Mercury.exe, and slowly
Yeah.
you start to see more like tech skins like that until eventually you can get a team. The pirate skins until eventually you get a team. We've got Chef Vulcan. We need more. Like we have to slowly get until we have enough chefs to make a
We
team.
need like the servers,
Chefs
we need, like
versus
the entire kitchen.
The busboy, everybody
Yeah,
got
the
has to get
delivery
involved.
guy.
Yeah, exactly.
So we're getting there. I'm trying to think of any other food that would be really interesting, but like I just like wings, and so like if it gives you an excuse to bring in wings for a
Raw
sponsorship
has the
of
ramen
the skin.
skin, but I was just thinking, what if
the
it's just
ramen
turned
skin
him
is
into like
really
cooked
good.
chicken? But
Okay, but Thor's like also a chicken.
Thor's a chicken.
Oh, not Thor. Sorry, Thor.
You said that. That was like
you were so serious about that.
THO, and then I lost it.
Yeah. True.
Oh, but Horace has that chicken farmer skin.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's true.
It's just not like fried chicken, you know?
I just want you to know someone did say dumpling Geb, take my money.
There you
So
go.
you're on to something there.
Let's make it happen.
Then you just dual lane with Cupid, and that lane's
Yeah,
full.
exactly.
Oh.
Just have a good time.
Dumplings.
At that point, I don't even play Smite. I just leave so I can get some food. Speaking of which, there's a place that does some really good like Shanghai soup dumplings near here that I should
Oh
tell
wait,
you
yeah, I
about.
want to know. Yeah, for sure. I was just in Toronto and I was trying to get. I didn't end up going to my soup dumpling place. So I wanna
We
go
were
get-
talking about dumplings, and like I'm just
Yeah, no
man, I
wait,
could go for
that's
some
sick.
dumplings.
I do want to go. I mean, like, what are we doing after this?
What are we doing after this? You know
we
what?
round this up early.
Yeah,
Go
we
get
can
some dumplings?
Chad, I'm sorry, you just can't. We've answered all the questions that matter.
We can take it to there.
How many of you like dumplings, chat? Yeah, we just take it on the road. I think we have another question to pull up.
Yeah.
Maybe a little less food based, which is probably good. I'm hungry, so we can veer away from.
Oh,
some.
that's a good
Bands is
question.
beans.
Yeah, added. Oh yeah, why haven't added bans into Casual Conquest queues to prep people for ranked, or at least have a version of Casual Conquest where we have bans, which we did have in the past, right? Like that
There's
has
a full
existed.
pre-made game mode, essentially, and then there were also Match of the Days that had bans in them before. I think the biggest reason that we don't do this is that a casual mode is intended to be casual. You're supposed to be able to play whatever you want, no matter how good or how bad it is. It's for you to play the god that you want to play, and that's the biggest benefit of playing casuals. You can, of course, play customs, in-houses, tournaments. There's all kinds of fun ways for you to experience the bans if you really want them. But I think just as a core, a casual mode should feel like a casual mode that you can just load in and do what you want to do.
Jump into ranks, turn off like comms and stuff, and it's the same experience, right? Just if you're new to ranked, I think the best thing to do is just get into it. You know, if you're worried about toxicity, which I understandably so in all competitive games, go ahead and hit those mute buttons and just
That's
go
what
ahead
they're
and play
there
what you
That's
want to do.
still my favorite advice from like Bart in 2013 was just like get into game, mute everybody in the lobby, and just play.
Yeah.
And like if you mess up, just acknowledge, hey, you know what, I messed up, oopsie poopsie, move on, stuff like that. Also, you can yell at me if I pull the veil back too much here, but there's also like that discussion, like, you know, we have arena and joust and
You know,
Conquest.
I was thinking the same thing.
Player
as well.
base, right?
Yeah,
Where it's just like if you
100%.
have these guys who want to play Conquest, this group that wants to play Conquest but with bans, but don't want to play ranked, suddenly now you've got 3 to 4 to 5 different
exactly
sets of player bases that are trying to play the same
it's
thing.
tough. We mentioned the same thing when we brought together Slash and like got rid of Siege and Clash. One of the main reasons, if we can start consolidating game modes, if we can start making sure that player base isn't too split across all of them. Because as a matter of fact, like it's just true that there are certain game modes that are more popular than others. Siege died for a reason. Just staring at Lermy. But you know,
you also love Siege. I love Siege.
I have a Siege.
That's why they
lover.
exist in the custom game modes and whatever it may be.
Exactly.
If we start splitting our player base even more than it is already, matchmaking just won't exist. And I know people. I think it was on like Reddit just a day or two ago. It's like, why is matchmaking like not doing so great right now? Whatever it may be. It's just, you know, summertime, player base might be lower. Whatever it is. It's just, if you have less people playing, if you have people playing other game modes, matchmaking just suffers. Like if you want to say, hey, like let's have 10 other game modes and also let's make matchmaking good. Like you can't have both. Like,
the easiest way to improve a matchmaking system is to have more people in queue. That is the by far simplest thing for us to just improve matchmaking. Is the more people that are in one queue at a given time, the easier it will be to find people that are similar to them and put them all together.
Yep. And I know, I mean, I don't really want to get into too much because there's like 50 different ways. I saw the question in chat, but I did see it there. It's one of the reasons why like the different types of adventures, you know, it wasn't something that we took forwards later on.
Yeah.
Is just those time, you know, they were always designed to be time limited. There were a lot of scope, a lot of time to be put into it, but we can't just keep adding things. We can't just keep adding different modes, even if it did well. Like, again, one of the things that the reason why we did kick those out is because after the 3rd or 4th patch, the numbers just go down severely to the point where it's like, you're looking at like Siege numbers again. It's like, well, then what's the point? We don't want to make our player base
heavy investment up front for a couple weeks of
and that was
interaction.
that was just one reason, but it was the one that we were talking about as well. So like, and it is absolutely a valid reason why we started pulling back on those.
And it's, I think, something that we've noticed, or at least I've noticed, and this is not even from like a seeing numbers thing, but like literally when we had the casual conquest that was like 5v5, if you full party and queued up into that, you'd be sitting there for a while because you were waiting for another full 5 party to come in.
Yeah, or
versus being able to like
season 0 conquest and stuff.
Yeah,
like the amount of hype for that. Like, I mean, the amount of work for that wasn't trivial as well. Bringing back an old map like that, we would have done it earlier if it was like easy, right? But you know, it took some work. We played test and stuff, and then like I think everyone's forgotten that it ever existed inside of our game, right? It's like, well, people really like things when they're gone, and believe me, I got the amazing chance to work on the PvE adventure. I love them. SMITE part needs to come back one day, but the fact of the matter is like within 2 weeks, no one would be playing them again.
Yeah, and so
without a lot of changes, and then matchmaking, and then there's a whole.
And then that's just a whole other investment, right?
Exactly.
It's like if we kept making those and then we had to keep balancing them, it's just adding so much more to the player, right? Not even like splitting up the player base, like for the devs themselves, you can't just manage that many modes.
It feels like we could dive into a deep conversation at one point about like the essence of a MOBA and why they're so replayable over time versus like what would be, I guess, like Smite card or like
right, exactly. The essence
like,
of a MOBA is Smite card.
Well, and like what is it that makes, you know, Conquest so replayable versus like X, Y, or Z? But
100%.
Those are deep conversations that are not meant for right here. These are meant for questions, and I've been told that we have a funnier one that's lined up for us. So let's see. Can you guys coach us on the pronunciation of Chiron and Charon?
Chiron. That's the difference.
So now I'm actually curious
like
because I've been saying like Charon, like CARE dash on, like that pronunciation.
You can say
that
it like
wrong?
that too. It technically is wrong. It's if people want to say it like that though, that's totally fine. That's probably the most common pronunciation that you'll run into. But technically, it is Charon.
Charon.
Car
goes on, car goes off.
Charon.
Or Karen.
That's actually a way easier way to remember. It's Charon.
Charon.
Someone in chat did say Charon and Charon, and that's the other, I guess, dumb joke that I was going to say. But I came from a programming background, and so I see char all the time, and think, char, like it's a char, so it's Charon. Don't say Charon.
Yeah,
somebody will get mad at you.
I think the funniest thing about the past couple of gods that we've had is that they all have like normal people names too. Like we've been calling Charon Ron. He's just been Ron.
Oh, really?
I didn't want to play Ron in the playtest.
Marty.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, we had Marty. We had Shell. We had
Maui.
Maui didn't really. Ishtar didn't really. Who else do we have? We had Surtur. Did he have like a regular name? I don't think so. I think he was just Surt.
Fire Daddy. I don't know.
Oh boy.
Earlier, someone said something similar, and you said that you didn't want that in it.
Look, you asked the questions.
You asked the questions.
First thing that's coming out of my mind.
Right? No, I think we have another one lined up here. And someone said, I'm a Python programmer, what's a char? And that's just, that one's good for me. Have you guys considered bringing back more old items that were once removed? Guarantee they have a follow-up to this that is something about Haste and Fatalis.
Yeah,
Oh,
right.
God.
I mean, Haste and
Or Golden
Fatalis
Bow.
exists in rings and the other ways.
Yes.
And daggers, but
I think if we were to ever bring items back, they would have to be
Blades.
modified in some way. We're not just going to revive an item from the dead if we feel like it doesn't have a place. And sometimes, you know, we removed items for reasons that they were problematic in some way. They were hard to balance. You know, there's lots of reasons.
can I
that
break chat? I mean, I don't know if it's a little break chat, but like, who in chat wants Nemean back and who wants it not back, right?
gosh.
I want to see if people loved it or hated it.
It's going to be the ADC mains versus the tank mains.
Yeah, that's-
going,
that's what I
yes,
love.
bring it back. And no, please spare me.
Yeah.
Look, and this might show what I play.
All right, Billy.
I love having block stacks. Okay, so take that, you know, how you will.
That's why Shell has block stacks now.
Yeah, dude, I think we've had this discussion. I feel like I've had this discussion with Aggro a lot, where we always talk about how good block stacks are.
They're so
Block
good.
stacks are really,
They're like
really
just
good.
the best.
Oh my gosh, they're so good.
It's one of the things I was like concerned when we were working on Shiva. It's like Shiva's blissful. Like people forget the pillar, the third ability, right, provides block stacks. It's
Yeah.
like, that's actually really good to stay in.
We've got quite a few bring it backs now, so
Oh,
this
gosh.
is the flood that you've opened yourselves to.
Okay. I mean, that's more than no.
Well, it's good to know.
You're right. I haven't
It's
seen
good to
I
know.
mean, we have
single-
the Guardian Charon mains in chat, right? So they're all talking about the tank
All
side.
of our tank mains are here.
Yeah, I'm
This
not
is the
bringing it.
smart way to do it is to weed out the carries, get them out of there.
Can we get, no, I was just gonna say, can we get the IGNs of all these people and like, you know?
Yeah, let's just go look at their history. See
That's
what
a
kind of
joke.
things
That's
they
a
brought.
joke.
That yeah, no, we don't want your IGNs. We're not viewer games right now. We do still want your questions though, chat.
Oh, it's a
So
glyph.
make sure you keep
That's always
asking.
possible. I mean, that's
Yeah.
what we did with like Witchblade, right? So
Yeah.
to get back onto the question, there's always opportunities to bring these things back, like even the anti-healing effects and stuff within Venom Deathbringer from
Yeah.
the Shuriken and stuff like that. There are ways to bring these things back, but you know, we do want to be careful of just having niche items for the sake of having niche items. It is okay, but in MOBA is in MOBA is the most complicated thing that exists is the item store system, and that's one of the reasons why in season 10 as a whole we cut a lot of items, is because there's just almost too many. I mean, there were too many. So one of the main things is we wanted to introduce new items, so therefore we wanted to cut even more items. I think there was a net balance of like equal to even less items than there was before, and that was
Yeah, I
very
think
much intentional.
It was like 3 or 4 less items. So we
I wanted it to cut like another 10, like, but it's hard to choose the ones like what's
Yeah.
next on the list, right?
Because you look at it and you're like, well, like, you know, chin size. It does this list of things.
Yeah.
If we have another item that does that list of things, why are you buying one versus the other? And why not just have
Yeah.
one that does
And we
those
want to
things?
innovate.
or
when we're
both,
trying
and then
to-
it makes a lot of problems.
Yeah, right? And then all of a sudden, hey, you know what? We nerfed the one that everyone was building, but it turns out the other one was the one that's still going to be busted now.
Yep.
Creates a lot of... the items, I'm still always impressed every time we see any item changes, I think, for me, just because it's like there's so many numbers behind every single... Like, the cost, the powers, the effects that they give, their passives, like... There's so much that you have to think about that it's like, okay, so if we make this a little more expensive, but then take down the power by 10, it's like, does that balance itself? Like, is that good? Like, I can't.
It's hard to tell.
I can't imagine being in that position.
And sometimes it is all about perception, right? Is there are items that have existed that have been probably really good for a little while, but people don't pick them up. They're not meta, and then suddenly SPL players try them out, or the meta shifts a little bit, and like this is like just the best item in the game unilaterally.
Yeah, and that's the thing about like small changes as well sometimes, is that things will fly under the radar. The pros will try it one time and they'll find success with it, and all of a sudden it's the most broken item in the game. Why haven't we nerfed it already? Yada yada,
Right.
yada, all of that stuff. And that just goes to show you that there's always new things that people haven't tried yet. And that's just going to be true for all live service games, right? That's just what happens when you change a lot of things in the game, is that there's all sorts of new combinations for people to discover. And that's the fun part, I think, in my opinion.
Yep.
It's been... I just think fun, right? I'm just seeing, from my perspective, for you guys, it's a lot of work and a lot of effort and a lot of stress.
That's our
sometimes.
job. So.
Yeah, you get to look at the numbers
Yeah.
and juggle all sorts of things that I couldn't dream of. I'll be honest with you. I think we do have at least one more lined up. Chad, I'm going to yell at you again. You just got to start lining up some questions to bring us. So do you guys have any considerations for adding new shards because they think they were a great addition to the game, and wonder if you plan to add any more to the future?
It's possible. I think that right now we have a really good balance of like every single class, every single character feels like that they have something that they could use. You know, maybe you want to mix it up a little bit. I would try cooldown on a Wheelix this time versus using the power one. Like, there's lots of different options that
Yeah.
you can play with. And I think right now it's at a very good point where it's not too bloated. Like, it's not like I have to make all of these micro decisions. I have just enough of a choice where I feel like my choice is impactful, and I don't feel like I have to min-max. If I pick the wrong shard, I'm not screwed for the rest of the game.
Right.
I just, you know, chose how I wanted to play the early game, and that was that. So I think it's definitely possible. In my opinion, I think we're in a really good spot right now. But if I ever feel like, you know, one is stronger than the other, there's room for another one, we could definitely do it.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely in the same boat. Is that they feel like they're in a balanced spot. I feel like this. You can basically get whatever you want to get from those options. You want to make sure that they don't feel so unique or strong enough that you don't want to replace them into actual relics. We see a little bit of flavor with that, which I think is really interesting. Like some people hold on to their Horn Shard or something like that because they want to like wait for a power spike, whatever it may be, before they switch it off to an Aegis or something else, or wait till the enemy team comes more online because they want to use that utility in a different way. If we were to add more shards, I definitely want to be careful with what they provide, and they're not just overlapping with what we have already.
I feel so bad to admit this, and I guess I shouldn't because it's in the game for a reason, but like there's so many, and for the longest time, like cooldown shard was like my go-to when this year came around. I've gone back to vision shard, and I feel like I'm betraying you by doing that because it's like there's all the new shiny, the new cool, the new talents, and I'm just like, that guy.
If anything, that's helpful, I would say. It's just like we decided whether we wanted to remove it or not, and it just came down to like, well, what's the point getting rid of something that's not really going to hurt anyone? If anything, it's kind of the backup. You don't really know what to get. Well, at least you can be safe, right? Like you can have the option that you've always had that will still provide good use cases for sure. And yeah, I think it is important.
I'm going to make up a question just because this popped into my head just now, and I kind of want to ask. Discussions about global ultimates in general, when you're bringing them into the game, and I guess for Charon here, the most recent, but even looking back towards like Atlas, you look at Giannis's, like what kind of discussions go into, should this be global or should it be limited? Like, how do you decide the full range for something like that?
This is actually a very funny situation with Charon because he initially did not have a global ult. It was not global. And we were like, how do we get this a little more oomph? How do we make it feel more ultimate? What feels coolest here? How do we elevate this to the next level? We were like thinking of different ways, and I was just like, what if we make it global? What if we tried it? We tried it. We really liked it. We thought it was a really cool addition to the ability, and it didn't particularly change up a lot of that regular gameplay that you'd be doing if you're just trying to, role play. I'm just going to play a Guardian. I'm just going to use my ability like I'm supposed to. But for those people that actually care about that global level, that actually want to line up those cross-map shots on a slow-moving projectile, it's so cool. It also kind of plays into that charge into battlefield with the movement speed buff on the back end of the projectile. So it goes forever. As long as you can keep up, you can stay with it. So it's just a really fun addition, I feel like. Not everything can be global, obviously, but for the right places, it's a really cool addition.
It's definitely like, especially with these more projectile style ones outside of like, Nuwa, which is global in a different way, or Chernobog, which is a different way. It's just, is how, balance is going to feel as a Guardian, as a slow moving projectile, because the Charon ulti is not a fast projectile.
It's one of the slowest in the game.
Exactly.
If it's not just the slowest.
It should feel fair, and even if you do get cross-hit snipe from it, same with an Atlas, the chance of you generally dying to it are lower than some of these other ones, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's really important too, because like you have someone like Persephone Ultimate, maybe it stops on walls, right? That's a really large balance point, but in Conquest more so than maybe Arena or something like that. But the projectile speed is more increased, the damage is higher, but it has a very different type of limitation.
Yeah, I think the other fun part about this is that when I was imagining this ability, I had this very like, what's the right word? I have this very like clear vision in my head of like being a kid in like a really big wave pool, and like the wave is coming at me and it's huge and it's building and it's building and it's building, and then it comes to you and knocks you down, and I was just like, I want him to feel like he can do that. That was a
down in the water pool.
listen.
Splash! Charon can bully children.
Not to children, because it's a teen-rated game, but.
It's I think it's one that's fun because I think what you highlighted is I played one game in a playtest as Charon.
I remember this.
And I spent the first 5 to 6 minutes with my ult exclusively trying to hit somebody in the. I'm in duo. I'm always trying to hit the guy in soul. 100%. I did not care about anything else with the ult. I wasn't thinking about the team. It was very selfish. And I don't think I hit it once. So that is
but it's fun to try, and when you do hit it, It's so fun.
You got to go the other way. So if you're hitting your side, you want to make sure like where all the minion waves are, so you just get the farm.
So you get everything.
All minion waves.
I remember. I can't remember. I want to say it was you and Aggro maybe in the solo lane. I can't remember who was over there.
Oh,
but I do distinctly
remember this.
Remember asking, "Did you even see it? Did I come close?" Like every single time, and he's like, "You hit the middle of the lane, and no one was nearby. There was not a minion, not a camp. There was nothing in the area." I do want to. Well, actually, we have another one lined up, so I'll go to that one first. But I have one that's lined up that I think is really interesting. So, do you guys think about bringing back Smite Night? So, having something, like an event going for the weekend to queue up with like friends and stuff.
It's a tough question because it's not really up to us. We don't get to decide those things. It tends to be like we are giving ideas if this is something that's brought to us. Like if marketing says we want to do Smite Night, then we go, okay, what can we do for Smite Night? And then we might get asked, what do you guys think we should do for it? But that's not something that we unfortunately have control over.
You're not the spearhead for Smite Night. Yeah.
Unfortunately, but I do really like playing Match of the Day. Like if we had a counter for Match of the Day, I'd probably have more Match of the Day than any other mode played, honestly. I'm a big fan of silly game modes.
Yep, fair enough.
They're fun. This one kind of caught my eye just because it was an interesting concept as someone who typically forgets to use. Actually, I switched back to. This is going to combine the conversation. I switched back to Vision Shard because I kept forgetting to use my shards usefully.
Oh, okay. Sure.
And I was like, I can remember to ward because like I ward all the time, so that makes sense. This person had asked if you were ever considering adding a relic. I'm going to add Shard onto that that has no active component but has a passive effect. So essentially, I guess it would take a passive item slot in a way.
Yes, we definitely. That was a pitch. I don't know if it was for shards, but I think it was just mentioned in general. It's just like it's just a unique idea of like, what if we do give all relics like a stat, or what if we do have a passive and active component? What if we just have one that doesn't have an active component but is just a really good stat stick? And I think what we came down to is just like, that's not really what shards and relics are for, right? Like it's an added layer of complexity, but that's not bad. It's fine to have some added layers of depth in the item system. Although again, the item system is a very deep place to kind of to live with all these new things. But if we wanted to add items in a different way, we would probably find them in a different spot, find a way to do them as actual items. The relics, the shards, they're specifically there to have an on-use effect. That's basically like our descriptor for relics and shards. That's not the right place. And if we wanted to just have them as stat sticks, then that's just it's the bloat question, items. Right? Yeah. It's regular items, and it's just adding power into the game when we're clearly running into the issue of too much power / protection / stats into the game. It's just not the right approach.
Because the discussion, I guess, coming into to this year, and as we just said a little bit ago, was like slash some items down so that you have room.
Yeah.
Has there ever been at any point the discussion of like, you know what, let's just delete everything and start new?
I mean, that's a
only
scary
items,
thing to
only
think
items
of, right?
specifically.
It's like, well, we have all these UI elements. Not that idea specifically has ever come up, but we have talked about like, how can we innovate what it's like to buy items and go through that process, and how can we make it different? But nothing so extreme, I think.
Nothing that extreme.
The amount of work that would take would be kind of insurmountable. That's not as only as that a lot of work, but you'd have to have. For me, it also just comes down to like, what's the purpose of that?
Yeah.
Right? Is it just to be new? In which case, I think doing what we did in season 10 was a pretty big step, because again, there's also a lot of comfort level. It's like, okay, well, if players come in, it's like, where's the items that they're used to? If there's literally zero, they might not play the game. They might just be like, this is just too much. Like, this is too much change. They could rely on the recommended item builds and stuff like that, or an auto build. But if they're on that next step where they're learning the items themselves, then that might just be too intimidating. The amount of work that would take, it would be a lot. And also just like, why are we doing it in the sense of, are we trying to solve problems? Are we trying to introduce new types of items that just interact with the game in a completely different way? If that was the case, and we had a very, very clear vision on what that was, then maybe. If we were trying to shake up the item system just from the ground up and like go more to like what other games do with components, or just have like singular items that don't have trees or something like that, right? Something that just evolve naturally as the game goes on, then maybe there's more of a reason to. But I mean,
as of now,
that would be
a lot of work.
That'd be a lot of work, and I just don't think it'd be worth shaking up the fundamentals that players already continue to struggle with.
I agree with that. I think that items are a really cool way to take a character that you can play forever, basically, and just make them feel different each time that you play them. Like a character, from character to character, a lot of them will feel different, right? But if you want a different experience playing full damage Thor, auto attack Thor, full tank Thor, any of those different things, you can get that through items. You can't get that through just
when an aggro goes like full ring Kepri build in an arena, I was getting surprised.
That's JMac for a long time was very adamant about the attack, like ADC Sylvanas.
Yeah, sure, absolutely.
And so like you would just have 2 Guardians over in the duo lane, but
there was like the build that honestly I think did work, which was like the older Mirrodin like Geb build or something like that. And I was like, damn, this guy's destroying me. And it was like
the double flip so big.
Yeah, I was
aggro in playtest.
I was like, huh, like this is viable, and I wish more people would do stuff like that because people talk about flex rolls and whether we like certain things in certain places. I think the design team as a whole are always just like, we design characters, we design items.
Yep.
Put them where you want, wherever it may be, whatever you think works, and have fun and win.
How much did that come up with Charon? Because like it feels like like ranged auto attacks, his abilities, like he doesn't have any like crazy hard CC, so his damage can be a little higher than some of the other Guardians. Like, does that concern you at all? Thinking that, oh no, what if he gets thrown in mid? What if he's thrown in solo? Like, what if he's not
his scaling
where he quote unquote should be?
Yeah, it's fine. So I don't think he'll really be that good at being full power. He has okay base damage numbers. We intentionally designed him with relatively lower base damage numbers in mind because he does have a lot of utility. His whole thing is being able to disrupt and buff up his team and the enemies, separately, because again, in his lore, he is such a neutral character that he really is just doing his job. He doesn't really care one way or the other. He's just gonna do both.
Like, man, look, I clocked in. I'm about to clock out. Like, I can't deal with this right now.
That's him a little bit. But his personality in game is a lot of fun. But honestly, I think as a person that works on gods, I feel like if people want to play them in whatever role, they're more than welcome to try it. If the god ends up in a role that they were not intended to work in, so be it, and then we'll just adjust it accordingly. If they become a soul laner, they're just a soul laner. That's how it was for several other characters.
I remember specifically when like Danza came out and everyone was adamant on playing him in the jungle. And someone asked me that same question. I'm like, do it. That sounds great to me.
That was me.
Yeah. It was definitely you, but it was also happening in the community too.
I feel like that fits because, like, I mean, even in at the pro level, we've seen, like, you'll see some weird things every now and then. Like,
I love it.
I throw this one under the bus, unfortunately, for this year, but like, Aurora played Opwash support.
Sure.
Okay,
It did not go
that
too
one.
too
That
well.
was a game and a half.
Remember last year when
In
they
the
were
past,
playing
Johnny has played like Apollo Jungle.
or the Yana supports of last year.
Yeah.
Right? Like that. I thought that was super cool.
I still remember that SMITE, by the way. That one made me so mad.
The thing that upset me is I tested that SMITE and I got it on the first try because I recognized, I think it was like the card art. I was like, oh, that's like the crash test dummy Giannis. And then,
that's right. Yeah.
And I nailed it. And then he showed me the next ones. I was like, if I did not get that, then I never would have known what this was. And it's upset me because that's the only one that I've done that well on, and it's not recorded anywhere. So you just have to believe me. And I might be lying, but I promise I'm not. It really meant a lot to me. I think we have another one lined up. That could be pretty fun. With the recent power decreases, are jungle bosses being closely looked at, specifically enhanced fire giant being harder / more dangerous to try and take?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's definitely something that was on our list. We talked about that for the patch notes show as well, is that we wanted to be careful with structures, jungle bosses, jungle camps, basically literally everything that, power and protections could affect. It's like, how does this affect everything else? And one of the things that we concluded was, well, one, we need to see how other people like play through this change that we made. Maybe they find builds that somehow circumvent the things that we've been doing. Maybe they find, just different ways of the meta. But also, one of the important things was, at that time, jungle bosses, like some of these neutral objectives, I wouldn't necessarily say they're too easy to kill, but they weren't as much of a threat as they could be.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like a fine line that we always want to balance, is that we want to make sure that you don't just solo Gold Fury like at minute 15 or something like that. You don't go to Fire Giant with just 2 people and it's not a threat, or you take it before the other team gets to react. As we want to make sure that the jungle bosses specifically, but the jungle as a whole feels threatening, feels dangerous, feels impactful. Maybe we are on the other side of it. I do think that the design team is considering jungle boss like nerfs, but we haven't done it yet because we still are curious to see how this feels. We also want to be careful because the easier you make jungle bosses, that's just yet another point in like the snowball column, which is okay. That's just a very fine balance that we've been looking at. We in one of the last few patches, we increased the neutral contestable camp farm versus like the safe ones. We've kind of flipped that. We just talked about the local rewards on the Unleashed Titans, today being another point in the snowball column. We also talked about how the game lengths are a little bit longer than they usually tend to be, probably because we did a lot with the gold chests before and made to make snowball less important, right? So we're constantly swinging to make sure that we're on the right side of this line and how we want to address it. Jungle bosses is another one of those variables I think we could hit. We just aren't sure if that's the exact time, if it's the exact time right now.
It's that weird balance, and I think, you know, because like snowball is always used, and I think it there's a lot that it encompasses.
100%.
And it's so interesting because like there's that very fine line between the team that is winning is just winning and now it's gotten out of hand. Yeah. And that line is so difficult. Like all of the changes that come along with that, where like it feels like it's like, hey, this might end up messing things up down the road. It might not. Like you said, sometimes the game links get a little longer, and it's a small little number adjustment. It's
also just like the nature of competitive games as well, is that like, and just like the philosophy of players is that, you know, you have your ranked games or your casual games, whatever it may be, generally not the SPL games. If you feel like one team is snowballing a little bit more than you'd like, right? What is the number? 3K gold advantage, 4K gold advantage at like 10 minutes. Bam, F6, right? Like that is too much snowball. We can never recover, right? Now, when there's a little bit less snowball at that time and game matches therefore get longer, you see a lot less surrenders because people know that what matters is the mid to late game. But then that just feels bad for the people who want to get ahead, who are actively like destroying the other team, don't want the other team to surrender, but like want a fun, you know, middle game experience that does end naturally at like 20, 22, 23 minutes, which you probably don't see that much right now. But again, you go like 2 minutes too early, and bam, the F6s start coming out way faster.
Yeah.
And you know what? I can address that right now because I have had 4,000 gold leads at 10 minutes and absolutely blown them in my conquest game.
I thought you were going to say like the other way around. Yeah,
no,
okay,
I have been up by 4,000 and just been an idiot and lost them.
Yeah,
because
sometimes
like
you get a little
you get in your you kind of get a ego, right? You start thinking, oh, I'm so far ahead. This guy doesn't do any
actually,
damage.
It starts to keep going on that, but I know I fully agree. I would say like whenever I play casual games with my friends, if we're ever winning really hard, that's the games we lose. Those are the games that go 100%. 55 minutes in and we always lose.
And it's you just sit there afterward and you're like, I just spent an hour.
Because they're just having fun. People just start having fun.
We were trying to win and we could have won. And like it was right here. I remember the moment. And then I sat here for another 40 minutes.
Fire Giant and said we were like behind their Phoenix when there's like a tier 2 still alive.
Okay, guys.
Okay, well now I'm just getting
a little bit more seriously.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think we have one more lined up. I do want to ask this one, which is just, have you ever considered adding aura items that are outside of just protection items? So like, you know, Sovereignty has an aura around it, all those other ones.
Shogun
but like,
says attack speed.
Yeah,
Talisman.
But I think they mean
like
attack. I guess like if I'm a carry, I'm buying something with attack speed and power and something else.
Leather cow.
Something else that gives an aura on it, which I guess we have some, but I guess more.
I'm trying to think. There's got to be more.
Yeah, we just ran into the issue of like, you know, a lot of the community decrying that aura items were too good, right? Giving too much stats to other people. And that's something we need to balance as well. So we want tanky characters to have their purpose, and they should be tanky too, and we want to provide utility to people.
You're a support. You're supposed to help everyone.
If you just give that to if you just give all the stats, like there's going to be just ubiquitous builds where we just like provide all the stats to everyone all the time, and therefore everyone is strong.
Can you imagine a carry with an item that enhances a mage next to you? Like that just does not seem like it's going to be very good for you. It feels like it'd just be, like you said, at that point it becomes one of those must-buy items, and then and then there's a whole balance hell
niche,
around
and then it's like no one ends up buying it, right? So Leader Scowl was definitely one that's something that we saw as being niche for quite a while.
I'm trying to let's see if we have others. I know we brought that one up. Chat. I said, well, hey, you know what? This one's just nice. It's not even a question. It just says, thanks for the insights.
Aww.
Nice.
And you know what?
Yeah.
I think that is, it's very appreciative. I always love having you guys come in and like talk more. I think it's helpful for everybody, right? To see a little bit more behind the scenes, some of the thought process that goes into these things. Cause like, that's something I have always said every time we have any meeting where it's like, I see the top 1% of players doing very specific things every week.
Yeah.
That has no correlation to what this dude in Joust is doing and how they're playing and what that means for that game mode and arena and stuff like that.
It's about the holistic look at it, right? You got to look at everything.
Yeah. And I see a very narrow window. You guys see the whole shebang and
oh, we try to.
Man, yeah, well, and trust me, there's a lot of like, I guess there's a phrase for it that I can't think of. Moving parts.
I was thinking there's a lot of moving parts.
Bells and whistles. That's the one I was thinking of.
Okay.
There's a lot of stuff that you have to like adjust, and suddenly, like, I mean, you had even said it, like,
it's like the overflowing, like, you know, valves or whatever it is. Like you patch like a hole over here, you do some change
something springs
over here, you put your fingers in right there. It's like,
but it's always really fun. And I think since I don't see any other crazy, you know what? I'll ask one more question. How are you guys doing?
So good.
Like just having a good day?
Yeah.
Excited for the patch?
Patch notes are always really interesting because it's like a lot of work to be put in, and now we get to like kind of like get that the cathartic release of like people getting to see it.
Dude, Charon's been worked on for like 9 months now, and having to keep that in a wraps, bro. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I feel like every time you wore your Styx Ferryman shirt, you just had like a smile on your face.
No, dude, I felt
like,
that every single time.
Now,
players don't know yet.
This actually does remind me. I had, and we're getting close to the point where I'll cut it off. But this one was one I wanted to ask during patch notes, and I forgot about until just now. Did the fact that they started using Row It Down as like their like thing,
oh my god,
affect anything in his kit? Like, did that give
Not
him his
kit.
3?
No.
Did it affect anything?
I mean, it affected some of the copy. Like, for instance, I wrote the Closer Look blog, and at the end it says, "Can't wait to row it down," or something like that. So
I'm sure you could take any of them. Probably Aurora, though, the happiest to have a god to play that matches his. Yeah, so it's going to be. I'm expecting, and I guess this is.
Aurora doesn't play Charon.
I'm going to be disappointed.
At this point, it should be every game throughout Phase 2, right? Like we know.
I'll talk to him.
We'll like see what kind of we have to do to get that to happen.
Yeah.
But great dev insight. And great talking to you too. I'm always happy to have you around. I'm sure chat enjoyed having you around. But chat, thank you so much for hanging out with us. Of course, check out the patch notes. Check out everything Charon is going to be releasing on July 11th. That is next Tuesday. So you get in, you play them. You have to have fun. That's actually legally obligated. It was in the EULA. So just enjoy yourselves. But for now, we're going to close it out. So once again, thank you to everyone for watching, and we'll see you next time.